Okay, welcome everyone to Charts Free webinar series. Today we have Jim Sullivan presenting on multi-unit leaders. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody joining us today, and those of you who are watching us down the road in a recorded version, welcome as well. Thank you so much. Today we're going to talk about multi-unit leadership. And if it's something that you're kind of interested in or not sure about, either way, I think you'll get a lot out of this program today and a lot of insight and information that I think will move your business forward and help you with how you train and develop your people. So I'm going to focus on 10 new rules on how to effectively develop multi-unit leaders. And of course, a multi-unit leader can be anyone who oversees several hotels or several restaurants. It could be a multi-unit franchisee. It could be an independent restaurant or hotel owner who opens their second or third or fourth property or unit and now is in that role of becoming a multi-unit leader. And I have spent a good deal of time really researching and trying to understand what makes an effective multi-unit leader. What made an effective multi-unit leader prior to COVID was a series of strategies, tactics, and behaviors that were specific to that time. And like most everything else, post-COVID, a lot changed. Not everything, but a lot changed. So we're going to talk about new ways of thinking about how to develop that above restaurant leader, that district manager for a hotel system or any retail system. Those of you not familiar with me, my email address is right there, jim@sullivision.com. And if you like the insight today, I encourage you to follow me daily on LinkedIn, where I post a lot of new insight, fresh insight on multi-unit leadership and leadership in general. Also, follow me on YouTube and to a lesser degree on Twitter, but I am there as well. These are some of the companies that we design service, sales, training, marketing, leadership, and operational programs for. I want to try to buy some credibility with you quickly here so that I don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about who I work with and who we develop programs for. But all of these folks whose logos you see here use our programs, products, and resources relative to multi-unit leadership. And it's not just that they use our systems, but we get good insight and into what they're doing as well. I want to kind of do an amalgamation of what we know and what we've learned from our clients and share that with you today. As you know, as trainers, that when you teach, you learn twice. So it's a good reciprocal example here of what we can teach and what we've learned from our clients as well. Now, there's a story told about a multi-unit leader who is going to interview a new general manager for her market. And she writes down the information about the hotel that this new general manager is staying at. And it's in another part of town, and she kind of knows the area, but she's not exactly familiar with where it is. So she writes it down, and suddenly she gets a couple phone calls, has to answer some texts. And in a hurry, she looks at her watch, says, oh my gosh, I got to get going. Jumps in the car, heads down the road, gets on the interstate, and then realizes, oh, I left my phone at home. I don't have directions. The stuff I wrote down, I left there as well. So she starts driving faster. And the faster she goes, the more lost she gets. I think we've all been in that situation before. Then she stops, takes a deep breath, and remembers the advice that her sister gave her, and that is not to sweat the small stuff. So she starts breathing better, and suddenly she's going still kind of fast, getting more lost, but now she's got a positive attitude. The point is, she missed the hotel, she missed the appointment, had to reschedule. Very frustrating. So what was the problem? Well, it's not like she didn't have intent to be there. It's not like she didn't have the speed and the commitment to be there. But she didn't have a route. She didn't have a roadmap. She didn't have a compass. She didn't know exactly how to get there. And I think that's really a good analogy for what happens with leadership. That people in general, multi-unit leadership especially, they're in love with the idea of being a good leader, but they're not so much in love with the process of becoming a new and better multi-unit leader. So I want to share that insight with you today. I want to talk about how we develop new multi-unit leaders, but I also want to talk about how we develop our current and veteran multi-unit leaders as well. Because it's not just people in crisis or going through a change that need training and development. It's also people who have been with us for a while. There are stages of learning, there are stages of gaining leadership expertise. And it's a mistake to presume that only new leaders need that training, need that development, need that care, and need that time. So if we look at the two types of new multi-unit leaders, you have one would be the person who's promoted from within, a general manager who's done a really good job at being a general manager. They get the opportunity to become a district manager. And what are the advantages there? Well, they're familiar with your culture, right? There's a lot of familiarity. They know the people, they know the systems and processes. They serve as an example to everyone else, that another GM or a manager in training looks at that person and goes, I can be a multi-unit leader here too. Look at her, look at him. They do promote from within. So those are some of the advantages in general to promote somebody from within. Now, if you hire someone from the outside, what do they bring? In general, they bring additional expertise that the person promoted from within may not have had. And they bring new perspective, usually a more positive and improved perspective. They certainly bring new skill sets because they would learn things and be able to administer things and apply things that maybe the person hired from within didn't know. And of course, they have connections outside of the concept, outside of the brand, with other multi-unit leaders, and they can rely on their expertise to get better at what they do. But what a lot of multi-unit franchisees make a mistake of, or regional VPs of operations make a mistake of, is they hire somebody with great expertise, with new knowledge, and they instead of waiting for them to tell them what to do, they tell them what to do. I think there's a Steve Jobs quote: you don't hire smart people and then tell them what to do. You hire smart people and let them tell you what to do. This is not to say that only anyone hired from the outside is smarter than anyone that is promoted from within. So generally, you might have choices. You'll have both of these. You'll have people promoted from within and hired from the outside. That being said, what are the key 5 to 10 to 7 to 15 things that we should be teaching our new multi-unit leaders and our veteran multi-unit leaders? Well, I've boiled it down to 10 commitments of leadership. So let's go through each one of these. So I think the 10 critical skills that every multi-unit leader should master starts with critical thinking skills. How do we teach people to be a critical thinker? And what does critical thinking mean? Well, critical thinking means, in general, that you assess all the situations. You don't presume that what you've done before will work in every particular instance. It means that you take all the data that's available and you apply that against the situation that you're running into, which will lead us to number 2 in just a second. And then you think about how this will impact you in the future. A good example of critical thinking skill is something that I like to call second level thinking. Second level thinking can revolve around 3 words: and then what? And then what? So first level thinking, we saw this during as COVID started to disappear from the food service industry and we start hiring people. We realized we had a hard time finding people. So we start offering bonuses to new hires. So if you say we're short of people, if you ask the question, and then what? If your first level thing is, let's give them bonuses. And then we ask, and then what? Well, and then what? You have to take care of the people who stayed with you, who were loyal with you. And then what? Well, then we have to make sure that we've got a better onboarding program and a better retention program in place. And then what? And then we have to think about ways that we can improve that on a continuous basis. So critical thinking can really revolve around those three words. And then what? Not just coming up with a solution, but thinking about what would happen or need to happen 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the road, a year down the road to improve that situation. The second critical skill that every multi-unit leader should master, I call them MULs, that's why you see MUL on the screen, is situational leadership and situational awareness. Now, situational leadership as a concept has been around in leadership circles for probably 40 years or more. Situational leadership means that if you are an exceptional general manager who has been promoted to a district manager or multi-unit leader role, you don't treat every situation like you would have at your original property or your original restaurant. This is a fatal flaw that we see among a lot of new multi-unit leaders. If there's a problem in one restaurant, they apply solutions that they would have applied at their restaurant. But we all have to realize that every restaurant has a different culture. In fact, no restaurant really has a culture. Every restaurant or every hotel is a culture. So situational leadership means that you take and assess what is going on in that particular restaurant or that particular hotel. You assess what the leadership has done or not done. You apply critical thinking skills and say, if I apply this solution, and then what? And you have a situational awareness of not every answer that you did before will apply here. So what will work best? So it means that you're going to recognize that there are options to improve situation. You're not just treating symptoms, but you're looking at the processes, or you're looking at the original things that are causing it. Like an iceberg, it's not the tip of the iceberg, it's what's under the water that's going to cause the problems. So if you see a symptom like a dirty restaurant, a dirty lobby every time you visit, you have to ask yourself, we've talked about this. So what is the solution here? The solution most likely might be that if it's consistently unclean, well, then you really have to look at what's the process underneath that's not being followed. What kind of team members are not seeing this as a priority? And is there a bigger management problem who are not treating it with the attention and priority it deserves? The third critical skill every multi-unit leader should master is to focus on outcomes. And if those of you watching this are getting a sense, this would be good for my general managers, of course it would. This insight are critical skills that every multi-unit leader should master, but they're also very, very relevant too, and should be prioritized for general managers. And that is focus on outcomes. Focus on outcomes. There's something I like to talk about a lot, and that is lag measures versus lead results, or lead activities versus lag measures. And if you're not familiar with that phrase, here's the best way to put it. A P&L, a profit and loss statement, that is a lag measure. Right? It tells you what you made a month ago, a day ago, a week ago in terms of profit and loss. So there's nothing you can do. You can't change that. That's your lag measure. But your lead activities are the things you do on a daily basis that would affect that profit and loss statement. The things you would put in place to improve profitability. It could be a pre-shift meeting on a regular basis that focuses on building sales. It could be a commitment to do gratitude walks every day during the shift to make our team members feel better about being there, which helps improve retention. So this is something that I think every great multi-unit leader does on a consistent basis. They think about what are the daily lead activities I could apply to get to the lag measure I want. And if you're still confused on it, and if I haven't explained it well enough, another good lag measure, stepping on a scale. So if my lead activity is that I watch my diet and I exercise daily, that lag measure when I step on a scale is not going to be a surprise. So I'm applying daily behavior that will a lead activity that will get me to that lag measure. I also like to promote something that I talk about in my book, Multi-Unit Leadership, backcasting. And backcasting is a good example of how to focus on outcomes. And I see great multi-unit leaders who have applied this. Our book has sold about 380,000 copies. We get a lot of feedback from multi-unit leaders on a regular basis about how it impacts them, their feedback on ideas and concepts in it. And one of the ones they love to read about is backcasting. Backcasting, for instance, to me is like it takes the lead versus lag measure and applies it this way. Let's say 90 days from now. Backcasting, the simplest way is take a sheet of paper, draw a line, turn it horizontally, draw a line down the middle of it. On the right-hand side of that line, at the end point, if you will, put 90 days from now. And on the left-hand side would be today. So on the right-hand side, you start working backwards. So what do you want to happen 90 days from now? Maybe record profits and lower turnover. Then you start working on the right side backwards from 90 days from now to 89 days to 88 to 80 to 75, all the way down to 1. And you put milestones in there. We would apply a retention strategy here. We would start doing pre-shift meetings here. We would do these things. We would share best practices till you work backwards to your to today, and then what you'll start tomorrow. So backcasting means you really focus on outcomes, and you think about, you begin with the end in mind. You start 90 days from now and work backwards. Those of you who have read our book, you know that we spend a good deal of time on that. And then those of you who have taken our Multi-U 2.0 course for e-learning, you know that there is a very interactive way to design a backcasting course, backcasting process for any restaurant or any hotel. Our fourth one that I like to focus on today, and that is planning and executing high impact unit visits. This is a critical skill that every multi-unit leader should master. Too many multi-unit leaders, especially new ones, will just go to visit their restaurants. They'll have 4 or 5, 6 restaurants maybe in a geographic area, and they'll just go in and visit each and every one of them. And they don't really have a plan. They're not focusing on anything in specific. They're focusing on everything in general. And if you're focusing on everything in general, you're not going to be able to focus on the specifics in terms of the behavior and the change you can make. So the outcome, the desired outcome of any high impact unit visit is this: leave it better than you found it. Leave it better than you found it. And have a plan when you go in. Do you want to focus, what are the issues there? That's situational awareness, critical thinking wise. What are the issues there based on the reports you've read on your previous visits? What was the team going to focus on improving? What might be current issues? Is there any construction in the area that might impact traffic or whatever it might be? And what is the turnover? What are the turnover and retention numbers there? Do we have a new general manager, a relatively seasoned one? And so you consider all of those factors before you go in, but you have a specific plan. You can look at everything in general, certainly, but again, you want a specific outcome. So focus on something that's a key performance indicator to you. Is it service? Is it sales? Is it retention? Is it training? Is it marketing? What is that? And that's your primary focus while you are there. And then when you sit down with the manager on duty at the end of that high impact unit visit, you certainly don't sit down and just go through your list. That's called what I call inspect, correct, and direct. That's something an auditor does. But really, a good multi-unit leader observes, right? And they observe what's going on, and they think about how is this impacting the goals we had, and then they help the person understand how they can resolve any challenges or get to that next level together. And a key part of that is that sit down with the manager at the end of your visit, where you're not just telling them all the things they're doing wrong, but maybe you're walking inside and outside the restaurant or the hotel with them and have them audit, if you will, or tell you what is right, what they're doing well, and where the challenge areas are, rather than you just pointing it out to them. So observing, inquiring, and developing is really what a great multi-unit leader does after a visit. Number 5, take control of what controls your time. Holy cow, if you don't have time to do any of these things we're talking about, and you're just jamming it into your schedule, that is going to be problematic every single time. So I think that a lot of trainers overlook the fact that you really need to have a comprehensive and effective way to teach people how to control the things that control their time. And by controlling the things that control their time, I'd suggest this. Once again, focus on, you can't manage time. You really can't. And time doesn't care about you. It just is. What you can do is prioritize tasks. So how do we prioritize tasks? That's an important skill to teach every GM and certainly every multi-unit leader. Because if a new multi-unit leader tries to run all of their units like they did their own unit, and they start trying to do everything themselves, if a general manager tells you, boy, are we glad to see you, we got some problems, and you say, what are they? I'll handle it. And you start taking on those problems, those GMs are going to be so happy to see you next time because they're going to say, guess what? I got 7 more problems. You're going, okay, I'll take them on. And you know what? You've got to delegate or die in this role. So you'd sit down with them, say, yeah, those are considerable issues. What can we do together to make those things disappear as far as challenges or improve those situations? Best way to take control of what controls your time is look at what you have to do tomorrow. What are the 3 most important things you have to do tomorrow? And what's the 1 must thing on that list that you need to accomplish? 3 most, 1 must. I'm not here to shill a book, but you can look at our book on the chapter on synergy and really learn a lot more about this 3 most and 1 must. But however you teach people to control their time and prioritize tasks, this should be a priority for you in developing them. Number 6, the 6th critical skill is understanding what the real cost of turnover is. The real cost of turnover, if you've looked at the numbers recently, they are depressing. In the food service industry, on the QSR side, the average annual turnover of hourly employees is now 174%. I'll say that slower so you can hear it. 174%, 174%. So that means nearly 2 people are leaving a role in a particular position every year. So what does that do to our managers? Our poor managers are being forced to, because of labor goals that are unrealistic, they're forced to work an hourly role during the busiest periods of the day, lunch and dinner, when they really should be directing the guest experience or directing the team members' experience. This hollows them out even more with task saturation. They are constantly trying to find people to hire and fill those slots. And when they do find people, do they have time to adequately train and develop them? These are all rhetorical questions, but you know the short answer is no, they don't. So these questions have to be fed into the critical thinking skills of, if we want to teach people retention strategies and how to keep good people with us, we need to apply critical thinking skills. How do we do that? And then what? There's a lot of answers on that, but this program is really not about how to hire and retain more people, but there are great insights to that. By the way, there's no silver bullet to that. There's no secret to that. If I knew the secret, I certainly wouldn't be sharing it with you via this webinar. I'd be preaching it from my private island in Hawaii, because that's how valuable that secret would be. Well, maybe there is a silver bullet. Maybe it's intentional resolve. If we put it into, you don't have to resolve the whole hotel or restaurant industry's turnover problem. You only have to resolve it for your companies. Number 7, how to design and deploy effective pre-shift meetings. Look, I travel all over the globe talking about multi-unit leadership. And when I sit in conferences and I see the multi-unit leaders, the district managers of the year, or even the GMs of the year, getting up on stage and getting their well-deserved awards, the one thing I hear all of them say, no matter what kind of brand they work for. The one thing they all admit to, the one thing they all tout as being a reason for their success, mandatory pre-shift meetings. Pre-shift meetings that are mandatory and not optional, every single one of them. And those of you who know me that have worked with your companies, you know I'm probably the biggest disciple of pre-shift meetings everywhere, because if you don't share a plan with your team members before every shift, they will institute their own plan. And I'm not sure that's something you want. For instance, if I come to work hungover, you know what my plan is for that shift? Well, it's not to engage and delight guests. It's probably just to keep my head down and try to get home as soon as possible. So teaching people how to design and deploy pre-shift meetings, and multi-unit leaders, district managers who practice this with their GMs at their meetings, so they're not practicing on their customers, which are their team members, is key and critical. Why do we train people in the first place? So they don't practice on our guests or our customers. Same thing should be done. Manager meetings is the perfect place that MULs and DMs can practice with their managers safely and how to do a pre-shift meeting. And when you see a great pre-shift meeting, you take your smartphone, you record it, and you share it with everyone else on your team, so you can constantly and consistently improve. Number 8, how to foster collaboration at every level. Foster collaboration is a fancy way of saying teamwork or engaging teams. So I think it starts with strategic clarity. Finding one goal every shift to focus on. Maybe it's sales, maybe it's service, maybe it's cleanliness, maybe it's turnover, maybe it's breakage, maybe it's smiling, maybe it's marketing, whatever it might be. Strategic clarity, having one goal per shift. And how many shifts do you have in a year? Well, I guess if you have 2 a day, you have something like 678 shifts in a year. So if you can get better at one thing every shift, and you're better at 678 things, or only half of that, 350 things in a year, how are your operations going to be received? They're going to be received really well. And you'll have habitual consistency in your customers because they'll want to come back. So encouraging, fostering collaboration and teamwork is key at every level. I think multi-unit leaders do this well with their GMs, but they should encourage their GMs to institute pre-shift meetings, which fosters collaboration during each and every shift. I just alluded to habitual consistency. Habitual consistency is the ability to do the same things over and over again on a consistent basis. Look, when customers love service, and you don't improve service in general, you improve service in specific. And service is made up of a million little things that the customer doesn't even notice until we don't do them. So never get bored with the basics. Train and retrain on habitual consistency each and every day. Because what drives our guests crazy is when they come to our restaurant or a hotel and have a great experience, tell their friends about it, come back, and there's another manager there, or there's different team members, or there's not as much of an emphasis on the basics, and they have an average or a less than average experience. That's habitual inconsistency, drives customers crazy. And that's why they go somewhere else. So don't get bored with the basics. Relentless repeatability, habitual consistency each and every day. And one of the best ways to be habitually consistent in what we do is to reduce complexity. So look at the systems you have, look at the processes you have. Do they make sense 5 years ago, but they don't make sense now? A good example might be habitual consistency in hiring. One of the reasons that we're having trouble finding people to hire and retaining people is that we're creating recruiting systems and onboarding systems that were made 10 years ago for a team member that no longer exists. The fact is, there is no labor crisis for companies who put people first. Number 10, embrace technology. This probably goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Embrace technology. Yeah, because that's coming at us fast and furious each and every day. And a great DM, a great multi-unit leader embraces that technology. We look at what's around the corner. We learn how to peek around corners and see what's coming. Immersive virtual reality video with headsets, with controllers. We happen to be doing a lot of work in that area right now, so it's kind of top of mind for me. But Boy, when you compare that to traditional training where you have an immersive world where nobody can pick up their phone and they understand how to make a pizza, how to make a burger, how to make a salad realistically through the headset, and there's no food waste, for instance, as an example, it's incredible how this moves the training process forward. So if you're interested in certainly learning more about that, you can reach out to me, but look around. I'm not going to talk about AI and chat GPT because nobody really knows where all that's going. And you can open up your email feed or your text feed every day and find tons of articles about that. So, we embrace that. We don't roll our eyes at it, but we realize that a lot's going to change in the restaurant and hotel business. Here's my advice to all of you. Um, what's going to change in the next 5 years? I get asked this a lot, and I will say this. It's pretty evident to me. Supply chain issues, hiring, training is going to change a lot. Robotics, AI, all those things are going to impact us. Immersive virtual reality training with the headsets, all that's going to affect us. But I think a better question to ask is what's not going to change in the next 5 years? What's not going to change in the next 5 years? If you can identify that, you can build a sustainable business process and plan around that. So what's not going to change in the next 5 years? My short list is leadership, service, selling, cleanliness, food safety, multi-unit leadership, training. They may evolve and may be impacted by technology, but they're not going to really change. So what if you can get really good at the things that won't change while we're getting good at the things that will change, that technology will foist upon us, that circumstances will foist upon us. So consider that as a concept going forward. In respect of time, let me summarize with a couple of thoughts. Multi-unit leadership is a thinking job more than a doing job. If you try to do it all yourself, as I implied before, you will fail as a multi-unit leader. So again, those critical thinking skills, situational leadership, and doing something that I call MYTOP, multiply yourself through other people. That is the essence of what a great multi-unit leader does. I mentioned before, reducing complexity is a key component of habitual consistency. So this means looking at all your processes, look at all your systems and say, okay, does this still make sense? What if we did it this way? What if we didn't do this anymore? How could we improve our onboarding system to everboarding so that we create excitement, retention, energy, and engagement at every step, at every day, at every week of a team member's employment with us so they stay with us longer and so they get value out of what they do each and every day with us. Want to highlight real quickly, those are 10 critical skills I think you should teach. If those of you who are familiar with my book on multi-unit leadership, I just want to highlight this. I'd be remiss if I didn't share this with you too. So what we did was every year in November, we interview multi-unit leaders. And we ask them, what are the things that are most important that you do? And then we've arranged them into these 7 buckets. So a good multi-unit leader starts by being a brand ambassador. They know the way, show the way, and go the way. The next level up is being a talent scout. They build leadership capacity in their team. They make hiring the most important decision. They build strong culture in each store or restaurant. Third is servant leader. You've heard this term before. A good way to think about this is my customer is anyone who isn't me. The fourth step up is being a great head coach, being brilliant at the basics, never getting bored with them, teaching the team how to think and not just simply telling them what to do. This is what a great DM or multi-unit leader does. The next step is being a marketing guru, applying situational awareness to each unit, to each hotel, looking at how do we connect to the community, have an ABM mindset, which means always be marketing. And being self-competitive by asking this question: if I were the competition, how would I put me out of business? And then shoring up your strengths, shoring up your weaknesses, multiplying your strengths. The next step is synergist. And this is my favorite chapter in the book. It runs about 76 pages in our multi-unit leadership book. And it really focuses on high impact unit visits and talks about situational awareness and critical thinking. And then finally, there's goal getter. They're disciplined, accountable, and they use that strategic clarity. Now, a goal getter, notice it doesn't say go getter. It's not just about having energy. It's about focusing on those results and attaining those results. And if any of you have ever been a district manager, a multi-unit leader, or R1 now, you know that on the left-hand side, you can see it gets easier to harder. Starting out as a brand ambassador is one of the easiest things to do because you've already done that as a manager, and then getting to the goal getter stage is harder. So those are the 7 steps. If you want to look at them, again, I don't want to shill the book, but if you're interested in the book, you can check that out, the Multi-Unit Leadership book. If you like what I have to say, this short program, and you'd like to bring this information and this insight in-house for a custom in-person program with myself or one of our team members, or a webinar that would be customized to your brand, to your team, you can email us at sullivision.com@gmail.com. sullivision.com@gmail.com. And let's talk about availability and what you're trying to do and see if we might be a fit. And I'd like to promote one more time LinkedIn. So we've got about 380,000 followers. Follow me on LinkedIn. And I've got a free e-newsletter there called New Lessons in Leadership that comes out every month. So subscribe to that too. I think there's some 55,000 people that get it. And why not make it 55,001? And finally, last but not least, if you're interested, I mentioned our book, Multi-Unit Leadership. Also have a very popular book called Fundamentals, which is ideal for your managers. Multi-Unit Leadership is also available in ebook form and also in Spanish. And we do have a great e-learning program that we do with our partners at DiscoverLink, or long time chart members and supporters. It's called Multi-U 2.0. So you can see the link there, multi-u at discoverlink.com, and you can explore that in more detail if that's something you're interested in. That being said, I want to open it up to questions, and I wanted to check on the time. I think I've stayed pretty close to what my promise was. So if there are questions that we can share, I'm ready to open that up now.
You are exactly on time, Jim.
Perfect.
The first question that just came out, 2 questions, but one just came in saying, would you go back to the screenshot for the multi-unit leadership acronym? I think it was the 4th to the last slide. So I will. Then the first question that had been texted in is, how do you teach new multi-unit leaders to be problem solvers?
Yeah, you know, that acronym, I don't think it was on a slide. I think I said it. So if it was probably MYTOP, MYTOP, multiply yourself through other people. I'm sure that's what they're referring to, because I know these slides pretty well. I don't remember. I remember saying that, but I don't think I saw it on the screen.
Okay.
I'm sorry. MYTOP, multiply yourself through other people. And what was the second question? I apologize.
How do you teach new multi-unit leaders to be problem solvers?
Well, you don't teach them to be problem solvers. You teach them to be problem givers. That's my experience. So, again, alluding to what I said before, if you solve every problem that a GM gives you when you visit, they're going to have more for you when you're done. So be a problem giver, a thoughtful problem giver. So you say that is a good question relative to your turnover. I'll tell you what, let's sit down. Let's think about that. What can we do together to make that happen? Okay, so let's focus on, let's begin with the end in mind. What's the result we want? Let's work backwards, and then what, and then what, and then what. So together, you're kind of a problem giver, that you're giving back the problem to them, but together you're helping to come up with solutions. That teaches them more, that teaches them how to think instead of telling them what to do.
Okay, next one that just came in is, well, how long is the recommended timeline for developing new above restaurant leaders?
That's a good question too. You know, there is no, not surprisingly, there is no, I can't say it's 6 months and 1 day. Well, how good is your training? That's what I would ask first. So, but in general, if you take someone who has been a GM and never been a multi-unit leader, a good development point of view would be 2 years, because it really takes that long. And I think you have to assign mentors horizontally, other multi-unit leaders who were recently new leaders who can help them, and then whoever the person would be above them too. So you'd have an above mentor, a vertical mentor, and a horizontal mentor too. But it takes a while. Remember, when you take a high performing general manager out of a unit, and they become a multi-unit leader, and then if they fail in that role, they probably will leave your company. I doubt that they'll stay around and ask to be made a GM again. So not only have we failed that person, but that restaurant that they were running or that hotel they were running as a successful GM has probably dropped in performance because they were leading it and they were so good. So you lose on a lot of different levels. You have to be passionate and you have to have perspective, but recognize nobody really learns this overnight, and it may take up to 2 years. Some people are quicker learners, but why should we think that there's an end point to it? Is training is like I don't know, like cleaning a floor. You know, you can sweep that floor and it's clean, but a day later it's gonna need cleaning again. So to me, training is a process. It's not an event.
Okay, so do you have any tips or tricks on getting buy-in from leaders who don't see the value in consistent pre-shifts due to timing, resources, scheduling, et cetera?
Yeah, I got the short answer is tie it to their bonuses. Make it the first criteria on their bonus. If they don't do pre-shift meetings, they don't qualify for bonus. That's how you do that. And the other thing is that I've heard every excuse for why you can't do pre-shift meetings. We've got staggered shifts. So does everybody. So do a 30-second one-on-one with the person who comes in later. Tie it to their bonus. The other excuse you'll hear is, I've run out of topics. Really? Well, here's what I'd suggest: that once a month in your district manager meeting with your GMs, that you highlight every week for the next month what you're going to focus on. Maybe week 1 is service, maybe week 2 is selling, maybe week 3 is cost control, maybe week 4 is selling again. And so you all know, all 6 or 7 or 8 GMs, who however many units you're overseeing, all have the same focus, and then they can exchange best practices and you continuously get better at it, because you'll be repeating some of the topics, certainly. But every excuse that they'll make, you can contact me at sullivan.com at gmail.com, and I'll give you an answer for them, because the opportunity is just great there if you do them, as opposed to not doing them. You know, a year from today, or December 31st of this year, what are you going to be most grateful for that you did? Nothing or something?
Okay, and the last question I have, unless any more come in when you're answering this one, is, can you tell me how the masterclass differs from the MU course? I completed the MU recently.
Yeah, well, the master class would be customized to you. The Multi-U 2.0 course, of course, it's detailed. I love it. I designed it with our friends at DiscoverLink. It's not like we hired a third party to do it. So it's very robust, and you can customize your experience to it. But a live workshop, a master class, means that I work with you on your brand, your culture, your menu, your concept in hotels, whatever it might be. And we customize, and your goals and objectives for the year. And we interview your people. We just customize it all the way through. There's no boilerplate programs. So that would be the big difference.
Okay, and that is all we have. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This will be posted on the website later today if you want to share the link with anyone. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.